Welcome to today's deep dive. It is April 29th, 2026, and we've got a really wild one for you today.
Yeah, we really do. It's one of those topics that kind of makes you stop in your tracks.
Exactly. So imagine walking into a factory, right? A factory that builds the world's most advanced robots.
Okay.
But then you realize there are no human workers left on the assembly line. Like zero. The machines are running, the new models are rolling out the doors, but the factory workers have actually been replaced by the robots themselves.
Right. It's a crazy image.
It is. And our mission today is to explore this single, just mind-bending article by Aaron Rose. It's from tech-reader.blog, and it's titled, "Claude is Now Building Itself."
Yeah, that title alone is, it's a lot to take in.
It really is. And look, we're intentionally cutting through the standard AI hype today. We want to look at what actually happens when an AI model starts participating in its own construction.
Because it's not just theoretical anymore.
Yes, exactly. For you listening, whether you're an engineer or, a creative or literally any kind of knowledge worker, this specific development fundamentally shifts what it means to be a creator today.
Yeah, and that factory analogy you used, it captures the gravity of the situation perfectly, I think, because we aren't looking at some speculative white paper about what might happen in like 2030.
Right. This isn't science fiction.
No, not at all. We are looking at a documented reality taking place right now, today, inside the walls of Anthropic, which, is widely considered one of the most advanced AI labs in the world.
Yeah.
The tools that have been assisting us for the past few years are now autonomously iterating on their own underlying architecture.
Great. Let's unpack this, because to really grasp the industry-wide implications here, I feel like we have to start with the micro view.
Absolutely. We need to look at the individual level first.
Right. We need to ground this in the staggering claims coming out of this source material regarding just one person's daily workflow. So the article introduces us to Boris Cherny.
Yeah, the head of Anthropic's Claude code.
Right. And the central statistic that Aaron Rose highlights here, and this just blew my mind, is that Cherny has not written a single line of code by hand in over 2 months.
Not a single,
Nothing. Not a function, not a variable assignment, not even a tiny, quick edit. But he is somehow merging 22 to 27 pull requests a day.
Which is just an absurd number.
Right. And every single keystroke is generated by Claude. Now, real quick for the non-engineers listening, a pull request is basically a proposed change to a software's main code base.
Yeah, it's a chunk of completed work.
Exactly. So merging 22 of those in one day is a massive volume of output for an entire team, let alone one guy.
It's a staggering volume of work. I mean, to understand how that is physically possible without him even touching a keyboard to code, we have to look at the mechanics of what Claude Code actually is.
Wait, hold on. I need to pause here, because my initial reaction to reading zero code was just like genuine confusion. Because we all use autocompletes, right? Developers have been using AI co-pilots for a few years now to, suggest lines of code or spot missing semicolons.
Right, the typical AI assistant tools.
Yeah. But in those scenarios, the human is still actively driving the car. If the AI suggests something wrong, the developer has to manually go in, find the issue, and fix it. So how is Cherny's setup categorically different from the tools we've already grown used to?
What's fascinating here is that we have crossed the threshold from an assistant paradigm to an autonomous agent paradigm.
Okay, an autonomous agent.
Yeah, when you use an AI copilot, you are still doing the implementation. You write a prompt, the AI spits out a block of text, and you paste it into your editor.
Right, you're the one moving the pieces around.
Exactly. And if it breaks, you read the error message, figure out what went wrong, and you either write a new prompt or just fix the code yourself. It's very linear. It's human-driven.
Got it.
Claude Code operates entirely differently. It is an agentic loop. Cherny doesn't give it a prompt and wait for text. He gives it a high-level goal. Like, what? Give me an example.
Like, migrate this database to a new server architecture. That's the prompt. And Claude Code then independently reads the entire repository, formulates a step-by-step plan, writes the code, and then, and this is crucial, it runs the code itself.
Wait, really? So it's testing its own work in the background?
It tests its own work. When the compiler inevitably throws an error, because that's programming, Claude Code reads the red error text, realizes its mistake, rewrites the code to fix the bug, tests it again, and just keeps looping through that process until the test passes.
Oh, wow. So the human isn't even seeing the mistakes.
Exactly. Only when it's perfectly functioning does it package the work into a pull request and present it to Cherny for final approval. The machine is handling the entire iterative loop of trial and error.
That is, I mean, that's wild.
It is. And Cherney actually used the word joy to describe this shift.
Joy.
Yeah, because by handing off the tedious mechanical act of trial and error implementation, he gets to spend his entire day just being creative. He gets to think about what he wants to build next, rather than how to build it.
Exactly.
That is a massive shift in human labor. Like, he hasn't stopped working. Obviously, the 27 pull requests a day prove that. But his role has completely transformed from the person laying the bricks to the person directing the construction.
Right. He's the site manager now.
Which naturally brings us to the macro view. Because, I mean, if one lead engineer at Anthropic has entirely automated his implementation, what happens when the whole company adopts that workflow?
Well, we're already seeing it.
Yeah, Aaron Rose notes in the article that Anthropic's official company position is now simply, we build Claude with Claude.
Which is such a flex, honestly. And the internal metrics provided by an Anthropic spokesperson confirm the scale of that statement. Between 70 and 90% of all code at the company is now AI generated.
70 to 90%, that's almost everything.
It's massive. But the most significant data point in Aaron Rose's piece is about Claude Code specifically. The agentic tool we just described is writing approximately 90% of its own code base.
Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah, the engineers who originally set out to build this autonomous agent are no longer writing the instructions that make the agent smarter. The agent is writing those instructions.
The loop is closing.
The feedback loop is completely closing.
And the speed that this closed loop unlocks is just wild to think about. The article gives a really concrete example. Cherney's team built a project called Cowork, which is Anthropic's new desktop automation agent.
Right.
They built the entire application from scratch in roughly a week and a half.
A week and a half for an enterprise application.
Which is insane. I mean, in traditional software development, building a functional, secure, enterprise-grade application involves coordinating front-end interfaces, back-end server logic, database schemas, security protocols.
It's months of work.
It's usually months of work for a dedicated multi-person team. Doing it in a week and a half means the AI isn't just writing fast, it's juggling the entire complex architecture simultaneously.
And it points directly back to a prediction Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, made at Davos earlier this year.
Oh, right. What did he say again?
He stated that AI would handle software engineering end-to-end within 6 to 12 months.
And people thought he was being overly aggressive with that timeline, right?
They did. But looking at the Cowork timeline and the sheer volume of autonomous pull requests, that timeline hasn't just been met. It is the current operational standard within the lab.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. If we are looking at a scenario where the engineers at this highly advanced lab are no longer writing the code that dictates how the AI operates.
Yeah.
And the AI is writing that code itself based on just like broad human direction. Aren't we watching the boundary between human and machine authorship blur entirely?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I struggle to see where the human's contribution actually ends and the machine's begins in this new dynamic.
You're hitting on the core philosophical friction of the article. Aaron Rose actually refers to this exact moment as a civilizational data point.
A civilizational data point. That's a heavy phrase.
It is, but it's accurate. Think about it. For the last few years, the public conversation has been focused on humans using AI as a highly efficient tool, right?
Right. We use it to write emails faster or draft marketing copy.
Exactly. But the people building the most powerful AI models on the planet have crossed over into something else entirely. They have handed the implementation of the models over to the models themselves.
Well,
We are no longer just using a tool.
yeah.
The tool has become an active participant in its own evolution.
And the way this civilizational data point was revealed to the public is almost comical to me. Like, it wasn't a heavily polished press release from Anthropic PR.
No, not at all.
Boris Cherney just casually mentioned it on X, replying to a thread by Andrej Karpathy. He essentially just posted, oh yeah, by the way, I haven't written code by hand in 2 months.
Yeah, just dropping a bombshell in the replies.
Exactly. And as the article notes, the casual nature of that disclosure shows how normalized this has already become inside Anthropic. It's literally just their standard Tuesday workflow now.
And normalization inside the lab is the precursor to normalization across the broader economy, which is the critical pivot Aaron Rose makes in his analysis.
Right.
The hyper-efficient closed-loop systems operating behind the closed doors of Anthropic are not going to stay there.
Right. Let's talk about that ripple effect. Because for you, the listener, You might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not a software engineer. I don't write code. So this is just a really interesting tech story.
But it's so much more than that.
Exactly. Why does this matter to you? Well, Cherney makes a prediction that the rest of the software industry will hit these exact same coding statistics in the coming months.
Yes.
But then he drops a massive warning. He predicts we will quickly start seeing similar statistics for non-coding computer work as well.
And that phrase, non-coding computer work, covers nearly the entire modern knowledge economy.
Pretty much everyone sitting at a desk.
Basically, yeah. To understand how this transition happens, we have to apply the agentic loop we discussed earlier to other professions. Think about a financial analyst.
Wow.
Right now, they might spend 3 days pulling data from various databases, formatting it in Excel, running statistical models, and generating a risk report.
Very typical week.
Right. That is implementation. But an autonomous agent applies the exact same trial and error loop to that process. It queries the database, sees the data is messy, cleans the data, writes the formula, checks the output against historical trends, catches an anomaly, recalculates, and finalizes the report.
While the analyst is getting coffee.
Exactly. The human analyst simply provides the goal, evaluate the risk profile of this merger based on Q3 data.
It fundamentally changes what kind of worker a company needs. I mean, the article explicitly details how this is already shifting Anthropic's hiring practices today.
Yeah, this part was fascinating.
They are now actively prioritizing generalists over specialists. They care less about whether someone has, a decade of deep specialized knowledge in a specific programming language like C++ Air, because, as Cherney notes, the model can fill in the details.
When the cost of complex implementation drops to essentially zero, the value of specialized mechanical skills depreciates. If the AI can write flawless C++ instantly, you don't need a C++ specialist anymore.
Right. So what do you need?
You need someone who understands systems design, user psychology, business logic. You need a generalist who can evaluate multiple disciplines and clearly define the constraints and the goals for the autonomous agent to execute against.
So what does this all mean? Let me try an analogy here to visualize this shift in how we work.
Go for it.
Imagine that for centuries, society spent its resources cultivating master bricklayers.
Hey.
We deeply value the specialized knowledge of exactly how to mix the mortar, how to align the bricks, how to account for weather conditions while building a wall.
Okay, yeah. Highly respected implementation work.
Exactly. But suddenly the bricks can lay themselves. The mortar mixes itself. If your entire professional identity is tied to being a master bricklayer, that is a crisis.
A total crisis.
But if you are the architect, the person who understands how a house should flow, where the natural light needs to hit, how the structure actually serves the people living in it, you are suddenly completely unconstrained. You don't have to worry about the logistics of the bricks anymore. You just have to dictate the vision.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the architect analogy perfectly illustrates the reevaluation of knowledge work. Because for a very long time, we have conflated knowledge work with the physical implementation of knowledge on a computer.
Ooh, say more about that.
Well, typing out a contract, building a slide deck, debugging a script, these are just the digital equivalents of laying bricks.
They're tasks, not necessarily insights.
Exactly. But if the machine can handle the implementation autonomously, evaluating its own errors along the way, we are left with a pretty stark reality regarding human value in the workforce. The only human skills that retain premium value in this new paradigm are direction, editing, and taste.
Taste. That is a brilliant way to frame it.
It's everything now.
It's the human element of knowing what actually resonates, right? What solves the underlying human problem. Because the AI can generate 50 different architectural layouts for a software program or 50 different financial models in a matter of minutes.
Easily.
But the human director has to have the taste and the critical judgment to evaluate those outputs and say, you know what? Option 4 is the only one that actually addresses our core business objective.
Right. It forces a transition from being a producer of raw output to an editor of high-volume output. It requires a much broader understanding of the world rather than a narrow focus on a specific digital tool.
The pace of this is almost dizzying to comprehend. Like it's moving so fast. Let's bring all of these threads together.
Good idea.
The core takeaway from our exploration of Aaron Rose's article today is this. While so much of the world is fixated on enterprise AI deployment numbers or, minor updates to chatbots.
The hype set.
Exactly. They are missing the profound structural shift happening underneath. The defining story of 2026 is that AI is now actively participating in its own construction. The models are writing the code that dictates how the models operate.
The loop is closed.
The boundary between human authorship and machine authorship isn't just blurring, it is fundamentally dissolving, starting inside the very labs building this technology.
And because the technology is autonomous, the speed of its evolution is no longer tethered to how fast a human can type or debug.
Right.
We're moving into an era of recursive, exponential development driven by the tools themselves, which will steadily move outward into every sector of the economy that relies on computer work.
Which leaves us with a direct question for you, the listener. Take a moment tomorrow to audit your own 9-to-5 workday.
That's a great exercise.
Look critically at the tasks you perform. How much of your day is spent on digital implementation, the modern equivalent of laying bricks?
Yeah.
And how much is actually spent on high-level direction, strategy, and taste?
Because the shift is coming.
Because if the reality inside Anthropic is the leading indicator it appears to be, the implementation portion of your role is about to be handed over to the machine. The real question is, are you ready to step into the role of the architect?
And as we consider that shift toward direction and editing, there is a further implication to mull over.
Oh, what's that?
If Claude is already writing 90% of its own code today, and humans have retreated to simply acting as the directors, what happens to human innovation when the AI becomes sophisticated enough to start suggesting the creative direction itself?
Oh, wow.
What happens to our role when the machine isn't just autonomously laying the bricks, but actually starts handing us the blueprints?
That is a staggering thought to end on, truly. Thank you for taking the time to explore this deep dive with us today. The landscape is shifting rapidly, and we will be right here to help you unpack whatever comes next. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.